In today's show, the Orlando Magic paid up to land Desmond Bane. What does that mean for the Portland Trailblazers? It's got a couple ripple effects. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, so make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we're talking about Desmond Bane, the newest member. Actually, I don't think the trade is official as I'm recording this, but soon to be the newest member of the Orlando Magic. The Magic make a splash. They land a shooting guard. They land some shooting. They pay up to make it happen, and it isn't with Anfernee Simons and the Portland Trail Blazers. We'll talk about that Magic deal, its impact on the Blazers. I think there's a couple different angles that it impacts the Blazers from, in sort of maybe in both directions. And then we'll talk about a private workout. The Blazers held a private workout on Friday for 3 first-round talents, probably players that will be selected or at least could be selected right in their range where they have the 11th pick in the draft. We'll talk about who was there and what it means and give a quick profile of each of the participants. We will get into that to close the show. First, let's start with Desmond Bane. Whoa. Whoa. On Sunday, it was reported, I believe first by ESPN's Shams Charania, and then many other places, that the Orlando Magic traded for Memphis Grizzlies 2-guard wing. He's really a 2, but he's strong, I guess. 2-guard Desmond Bane. And it was a hefty price. In exchange, the Memphis Grizzlies receive Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, 2025 first-round pick from Orlando, a 2026 first-round pick that is protected in a couple different ways between Phoenix and Washington, 2028 first-round pick, 2030 first-round pick, and a 2029 swap that is top 2 protected, according to Philip Rossman-Reich of Locked On Magic. Whoa, that's a lot of 4 firsts and a swap for Desmond Bane is a lot. Somewhere, Nico Harrison's ears are bleeding. Did you know you can ask for more when you trade players? Yeah, I think on its face, let's start here. This seems to be an overpay for Desmond Bane just because of the cost, right? I'm a pretty big Desmond Bane believer. I like him. I think he's a good player. He's a 40% three-point shooter who shoots some volume. He's got a little bit of he's better at flybys, like a pump fake sidestep, but he can attack a closeout a little bit. He can run a little bit of pick and rolls, although you wouldn't want him to be a primary creator by any means, but he can score at all 3 levels to some extent. I don't think you wouldn't confuse him with a defensive stopper, but I think he can be a competent and talented defensive player, certainly part of very, very good defenses, and Orlando clearly prioritized that. It had been made clear by the Orlando front office in their end of season interviews that going all in, making a trade to get better, and particularly prioritizing shooting and a little bit of offensive creation was 100% their goal and their stated goal, and their needs and all of those things, and they were going to pursue that this summer. Which is why there was some speculation and some reporting that the Blazers could get involved and that the Magic had some interest in Anfernee Simons. But it ain't Anfernee Simons. No ant to Orlando. And if you are trying to pretend like that, to trade Anfernee Simons could still get trades to the Orlando Magic, no. that ship done sailed. It's just, this was the move they made. And boy, was it a big one. So I want to unpack this from a couple reasons. Maybe a little bit like why not Simons, and then what it means for the Grizzlies, because I think both of those do change they change things a little bit for the Trailblazers. So, I mean, the Magic get their shooter and their scorer. Desmond Bane is better than Anfernee Simons. He also kind of fits their, he's just better, in a vacuum. He's a better basketball player. But they're not identical by any means, because Anfernee Simons has a lot more pick and roll game to him. But I think Bane shot better from distance if he's supposed to be a better shooter, and Bane has been a consistently better defender during his career. He's under contract for 4 more seasons at a big number. But if they traded for Anfernee Simons, he's entering the final year of his contract. They'd have to pay him, and he'd be under contract for 4 more seasons at a big number after this one. So I guess you'd get 1 more team control. But it's like it's a similar thing in terms of money because of the cap has gone up. So you'll eventually you won't be paying Ant that much. Not gonna make it $45 million, but he would have been in line for a hefty payday. If you trade for him, you're trading for him for it's a commitment, right? So, they get this. Bane fits a little bit of Orlando's MO, right? He's not a true point guard, and they're clearly saying, like, we believe in the creation ability of Suggs, that's Jalen Suggs, of Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, and enough of Bane's shooting that we can, like, we can make it work. We can create enough advantages with that, and just, like, plus a 1+ shooter on the floor, and maybe if Suggs comes back, he was a pretty good shooter before he got hurt that one season. So, like, yeah, that's the bet they're making. But this is also this is an overpay, and the Magic chose to overpay. And one of the reasons why was like maybe they would be down to make a similar move for Simons from the Blazers' perspective. Not this similar, not identical to this by any means, but like something not too dissimilar from this is basically the trade idea everyone's kicked around. Anyone with access to trade machine, it's like KCP and somebody else, often Cole Anthony and some picks or a pick, depending on your vision of what Anfernee Simons' trade market is. But the Magic kind of had to do this because they needed the East is kind of wide open, right? The East is seemingly wide open next year with Damian Lillard's injury and Jason Tatum's injury. Certainly the Bucks and Celtics look to be worse. The Celtics might also be unloading some salary to get a little bit cheaper. The Knicks are a good team, but not a perfect one. The Pacers are a darn good team, but not a perfect one. You don't feel like that's like an elite team that's going to march back to the finals every year forever. It's just... we'll see what happens with the Cavs, but it's like there seems to be a vacuum in terms of like maybe not the very top of the East standings, but certainly in that like 3-4 home court advantage range that the Magic could easily waltz themselves into, and this is a chance to do so. And in addition, they're betting on themselves in 2026 in 2025 and 2026. Like they're saying, we're not going to miss these immediate coming up first round picks too much. And I guess they project themselves to be pretty good because when you're trading unprotected picks in 28 and 30, you're saying we're not going to get burned by this. We're not going to be awful. But that also just might have been, they had to go all in. Do I love the price they paid? No, but they're banking that they won't feel the burn. But they also needed to do this now. They needed to do this summer. And from what I understand, this trade is going to go down before the end of the league year. This is actually be a trade that takes place in the 24-25 season before the calendar year rolls over, because if the Magic had waited, they would be subject to some of the provisions of being a first apron team, and it would be a little bit harder. And they would there would be some challenges in navigating a trade of this size. In addition, Paolo Banchero is going to get a big contract extension this summer. They've already paid Franz Wagner. Jalen Suggs, not a giant contract extension, but big money, years and money on his contracts, right? They're going to be an expensive team, and they're going to get expensive, and it would be harder to make moves at pretty much any point into the future, and if not now. The Magic had to act. They chose to act. They paid a whole bunch, and they went in a way that that didn't involve the Blazers. So what does it mean for Anfernee Simons' trade market? It always was going to be somewhat narrow because I don't think his archetype is particularly valuable. I think we've seen that over the last 3 to 5 seasons, that combo-y guards that don't really defend are not in high demand across the league. Certain specific teams could use Anfernee Simons' skill set because he can shoot, he can play on the ball and off the ball, and he provides a little bit of individual, go get my shot, own shot type of offense. And in specific settings, that is valuable. And the Magic, with just this horrendous offense and elite defense and some young creators that could allow Ant to toggle on and off the ball, they did seem like a really nice fit. They went another way. They paid a whole bunch of money to go the other way. And I do think Desmond Bane is better than Anfernee Simons. But the cost maybe balances a little bit. The Blazers it's not like they legally have to trade Anfernee Simons. I've been in favor of them trading Anfernee Simons for 2 years. So, Obviously, they don't have to do that, but I do think this was the obvious landing spot for him. But sometimes the obvious things don't pan out. Sometimes they do. See Jeremy Grant on the Portland Trailblazers or CJ McCollum on the New Orleans Pelicans for a Blazers version of very obvious. But I think like the Denny Avdia trade came out of nowhere. Dame getting traded to Milwaukee came out of nowhere. The Blazers have landed on both sides of the "we saw this coming all along" versus "wow, where did that come from" type of spectrum. So maybe there is an Anfernee Simons trade that we don't see coming out there, but I don't know that the Blazers are deeply motivated to move off Anfernee Simons. Like, well, they certainly haven't been to this point, and they don't have to. To me, it would make more sense if they are already done so, or they chose to do it now. But they don't have to. And with one suitor off the board, maybe they just say, "Nah, that's not our move." You do at some point back yourself into paying Anfernee Simons. Like there is, I don't think. While I do think there's a world where DeAndre Ayton walks without getting paid, I don't think there is a world in which Anfernee Simons walks without getting paid. I think the Blazers will just walk themselves into a space where they feel like we would rather extend Anfernee Simons versus if we can't find a palatable trade for him, and we'd rather extend him and then maybe try to trade for him in the future. To me, a big mistake, but I've been banging the same drum for, I don't know, 15 months or something. So a little, maybe even longer. So what are you gonna do? I will, it's not the route I would go, but I do think it is a route that they are potentially headed because because this Bane move happened. This also has some implications because what the heck are the Grizzlies doing? What was this? Well, let's talk about that in the second segment. Where did this come from? Why did they do this? We will talk about that because that has some implications for the Blazers, particularly in this upcoming season. Join me in the second segment. We will talk about just that. Before we get there, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever look at your bank account and think where did all my money go? Where hath it gone? Well, you're doing stuff. You're buying meals. You're going grocery shopping. You're entertaining yourself and your family. It can be easy to lose track of your funds, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Plus, with Monarch, you can plan long-term and short-term savings goals at the same time, saving in 2 buckets. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right. So, why did the Grizzlies do this? I woke up this morning to this trade happening on a Sunday morning. I'm like, my goodness, I was awake, to be honest. It happened about 8 a.m. Pacific time. I was up. But in any case, it was early in the morning. It was breakfast time, coffee time, and I'm like, what is going on with this deal? My first reaction is that it's wow, that's a lot for Desmond Bane, even as a Desmond Bane appreciator. Boy, has the price gone up. But what is Memphis doing? They did need to create a little more financial flexibility to sign Jaren Jackson Jr. to a contract extension and Santi Aldama to a contract extension, but it seemed like they'd already done that by salary dumping Marcus Smart at the trade deadline, by actively getting a little bit worse in order to have some future financial flexibility. It seems like, okay, well, if you got to sign Tripp and you got to sign Aldama, you've created a space to do that. I think undoubtedly, if you just look at if the Grizzlies had to play a basketball game, you're listening to Monday, June 16th program. If they had to play a basketball game on June 20th, yeah, they're worse. They got worse today. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has had a really, really, really tough season in Orlando, but he has been better than that in recent seasons. And if you think maybe a change of scenery and better context could allow him to get back to being a really useful part of good teams, certainly you can talk yourself into KCP being better, but time is undefeated. Perhaps he just got gray in a hurry. I'm a Cole Anthony appreciator, but I'm not a fan of him as a basketball player. I don't think he's very good. But maybe he can help because he just has some relentlessness. He plays hard, if nothing else. But I'm not a particularly big believer in him being like a positive basketball player. So I'd say they're worse. Desmond Bane's better than both those dudes. Having Desmond Bane is better than having both of those guys. Like, there is no like, depth add here. The value is in the picks. They got a haul. So why did they get a haul? Like, real quick, actually, hold on. The Grizzlies are worse. And if you're rooting for the Blazers to be a play-in team or whatever next season, I think this is one more team that took a step back for now. So that helps the Blazers, right? If you're someone who like really wants the Blazers to win that 44th game next season, having another team that is worse is very helpful. Grizzlies won 48 games last year, and they're worse than they were. They'll wake up worse tomorrow than they were yesterday, right? So that helps. If that's something you're after for the Blazers. So why would they do this? I think you do this for a couple reasons. One, it's just a huge haul, right? And you feel like, okay, we're just like, we won 48 games, but we feel like we were this hot young team that was going to take over the West. We've kind of stagnated each of the last 2 seasons. Desmond Bane's owed all this money in the future. We don't feel like we can push that far forward with that core. And the way out of this right now, even though we take a little mini step back, we get all this future draft capital. We have all this future draft capital now to like make other moves with, upgrade the roster in other ways. So are they positioning themselves for a bigger move? Is Kevin Durant going to be a Grizzly, right? Is this what they did? They made this trade to add 37-year-old Kevin Durant. Is there another thing we don't know about, like another sort of bigger prize? Because the Grizzlies were reportedly kind of in on Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy was like, I don't want to play for Memphis. Is that type? Are they still in that mode, right, where they're trying to add like veteran win now parts, and this was a way to like, hey, first we get off Bane, step 1, step 2, we add all this draft capital, and then we can flip KCP and Cole Anthony and whatever it needs to forward to make that deal? Or is this the beginning of a rebuild? Like I mentioned that they're worse now, but like, could they be getting even worse? Jaren Jackson Jr. eligible for a contract extension this summer. I believe Ja Morant is as well. It has been long assumed that Jaren Jackson Jr. was going to get a max or near max deal, depending on kind of the wiggle room they had financially, but a fat contract, right? Like a $50 million annually for Jaren Jackson Jr. for Triple J. He's good. Like he's any team would be thankful to have him, but like that's a big financial commitment. And if you're not planning to be good, making those big financial commitments changes, like the calculation changes a little bit. Are they just done with being in the Ja Morant business? Is that what this is? And the reason that they fired Taylor Jenkins and redid the coaching staff and collected all these picks is because they're also going to try to move off Ja, and they feel like this is step 1 of a major teardown. Are they going to rebuild with just Jaren Jackson Jr. and kind of like try to cycle back up quickly based on the trades they make with a bunch of draft capital? Like where are they headed? I think like that is something that remains to be seen, but certainly if this allows them space to say, okay, we are going to be able to be in the market for big trade action, or it's like allows them to, this is step 1 of tearing this thing down and saying like that era didn't work and we're going another way, and boy, did we get paid handsomely to start this path. I think this is a pretty safe bet for Memphis. I also think like, you look at it from both sides. Like Memphis is maybe in some ways motivated because like their kind of like okay but not elite roster was getting really expensive. Well, the Magic are about to have an okay but not elite roster get very expensive. Some teams go for it and it doesn't work. Some teams went for it, like we go for it, doesn't work, and they have to bail out. And other teams, they cycle back up, and where the Magic are in their roster building cycle, they're the team that's going for it and spending big. Albeit I think there's a maybe East versus West thing that is maybe the difference in some of the reasoning here, because of the path to get deeper into the playoffs is just a lot bit different in the Eastern Conference than it is in the West. So is there another team that's going to drop below the Blazers in the standings? Or are the Grizzlies going to be part of this big shakeup? It was reported in several spaces that there was some speculation that big trades were going to come this summer. This offseason was going to be the year of big trades, not particularly intriguing free agent class, whole bunch of teams dealing with the kind of challenges of the new apron place that the CBA finds itself in, and that the trade market and big, massive structural trades were going to be the thing that really like made this summer, but that we saw the biggest action this summer was the trade market. Doesn't seem like right now Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be involved in that, but it seems very certain that Kevin Durant will be, and perhaps there'll be other dominoes to fall. Certainly worth tracking from the Blazers. They didn't get in on the one that they might have, but the Grizzlies also got worse. So by doing nothing, maybe the Blazers climbed in the standings today, although we're not able to get in on a trade into the future. You know what else Portland did? They had a private workout for 3 names that you probably know: Derik Queen, Egor Demin, and Noah Penda in the building on Friday for a private workout. By that, I mean no press invited to do any media following it, but it has been reported that it happened. Let's talk about those gentlemen and what it means for the Blazers. We'll talk draft stuff to close the show. Join me there. First, though, let's talk about FanDuel. Look, the NBA finals are coming to a very end. Where we are into there are maximum 3 games remaining in this thing. So I hope we get a lot of fun ones. But if you want to add a little more fun to the final 3 games of the NBA playoffs, the NBA finals, FanDuel's the place to do it. Whether it's the in-game action that you want to get on or pre-game stuff, FanDuel makes it easy before tip-off or live. Player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So whether you want to get in prior to tip-off of Game 5 and make wagers on the money line or the spread, or once the game starts, if you want to build a same-game parlay or bet who's going to win the second quarter or second half spread, anything with the live bets, FanDuel's got it all there waiting for you. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up because you can head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So, still past first point guard, still Mike Richmond, still is Locked On Blazers. So the Blazers held a private workout on Friday, reported by Danny Morang of 1080 The Fan. The Blazers hosted 3 prospects: Derik Queen from Maryland, Egor Demin from BYU, and Noah Penda, a 20-year-old playing professionally in France. The difference in like private versus public does not mean that it's deeply secretive, although it just means that it is not publicized. It has to be reported by someone like Danny et al., or whatever. It could be someone who doesn't live here. It could be it certainly has happened times in the past where national folks report this news. But like, it just means that there's no media members invited. And this happens for a couple reasons. Sometimes agents like don't want it out there publicly where all of their players have been. Sometimes they just it is just the sort of preference of many handlers, not because they're worried like, oh my gosh, they're going to think my client is like interested in 11, but that they just say, if you're going to do a workout, you're going to do it on our terms. And part of our terms are that the media doesn't come in and that you don't say anything about it. Just kind of the throwing your weight around thing that happens with agents and et cetera, et cetera. This stuff has a way of getting out one way or another. And indeed, the Blazers hosted these 3 guys. Typically, when you have these workouts, these type of workouts, you don't get a lot of live action. It's also another thing that agents do when they hold these workouts is it's just you versus the chair, right? You go through some shooting drills, you go maybe do some agility stuff, but it's single one-on-none or you versus the coaching staff type of workouts. It's not like freaking Derik Queen was going to be posting up Egor Demin and they're going to be playing ones in the corner. Conceivably they could, but usually the way these private workouts go is like instead of like getting into they are agent dictated, certainly team controlled, but agent dictated. We'll bring my client into the gym, no problem, but it's going to work out this way. He gets to go through shooting drills. He gets to go through these things. You get to chat with him, and then they go home. He doesn't play against anybody, but it happens. It is controlled for a reason, right? This is kind of the game you play when you are where the Blazers are, right? They don't have a coveted spot. They're 11th in the draft. They got to listen to somebody else to kind of get this stuff done. So let's talk about Queen, let's talk about Demin, and let's talk about Penda. Derik Queen I've talked about a bunch on the show. He's obviously someone who has been projected to go right in the Blazers range a bunch. I like him as a player. like, and stylistically, he's a creative, high post, a little bit of post up, a little bit of face up game, big. He has some passing skills. He's got some ball handling skills. Not much of a shooter. Doesn't seem like he's like this elite motor guy, high level defender, but like a skilled, big physical player who was really, really productive in college. Like, 16.5 points, 9 boards, just shy of 2 assists, more than a block, more than a steal, shot 53% from the floor. That includes, he didn't shoot well from 3, 20% from 3 and 77% from the free throw line. But it's like just productivity alone, just like a very productive player, and like had a game winner in the NCAA tournament, like fun player. My concerns with him is that I don't think he can be a defender, like a rim protecting center, just because he measured 6'9.25" barefoot. He's not like super big, and he doesn't have like the sort of indicators that suggest he's like a high level defender and rim protector. And so like really you're talking about offensive skills, and I don't love like centers who you banking on their skill being offensive. First and foremost, like most of their value comes on the offensive end if they're not a non-shooter. And he's like a non-shooter who most of his value comes from like being a creative player that you play through. And it's like, is he talented enough to play through? And if he is, like, I mentioned this before. It's like, is he Alperen Şengün or Domantas Sabonis? That's like the highest end outcome, or is he Andre Blatche, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, that's a talented big offensive player, but like can never start on a good team because doesn't provide the help in the other areas. Queen is probably better than Blatche, who was like a second round pick. But like, I think there's a lot of middle outcomes between the sort of like low end and the high end where Queen is like totally fine. If I was more confident with him being a multi-position player, like him being able to play a ton of power forward, I would be into it. But I worry that he's just not quick enough laterally to guard fours and guard you kind of have to switch if you play power forward in the NBA, most likely. Is he like, can he be a switchy, versatile perimeter defender enough to get away with it four on offense? And can he shoot enough, on defense? And can he shoot enough to get away with it on offense? I kind of think no on both counts, which means he's probably a 5. And I don't love what he brings in that way. I'm not like totally like that seems a little negative. I'm not like totally out on him just because I'll bet on the production and the skill level. I just like, for me, he's not the ideal pick at 11, although like, I wouldn't be, I think that's more personal preference than like deep scouting understanding. I will say ESPN has Queen as the 15th on their big board. Sam Vecini has him at 11, and Rafael Barlow of Locked On, or NBA Big Board and Locked On NBA Big Board, Raf has Derik Queen at 9. Egor Demin, he's a really interesting player for me because I think you're just betting that it all clicks for him. He's 19. He'll not at opening night. He won't have turned 20 yet. Maybe the best passer in the draft, and he's 6'8", measured over 6'8", barefoot. Right? It's just in college, his season at BYU. He didn't shoot very well, 27% from 3. He wasn't like this like crazy downhill guy who got himself into the paint with regularity. And if he can't like turn the corner and get into the paint, then the pros, like the passing matters a lot less, because like if you can't get past anyone and create an advantage, your creativity really gets muffled. And if you can't shoot, it gets even harder to get past folks. But what you're hoping with Demin is like at his frame, 6'8", 200 pounds, that's barefoot, right? We'll call him 6'9", 200 pounds. It's like, with all of the skills that he has as a ball handler and as a really, really good passer, he's like a point guard, right? At that size. With all of those skills catch up, the shooting gets there, and he kind of figures out a way to be more functional in getting past folks. And then the bet is like, a player of his size with that level of skill is really good. You're betting though. You are. I think as opposed to like where with Queen, it's like, well, the production is undeniable. With Demin, the production isn't undeniable. The production itself is somewhat theoretical, but like the skill is there. The skill is there. There's a world in which he's like Kyle Anderson, who doesn't defend very well. That's not like Kyle Anderson's gonna play in the league for 10 or 12 years, if not longer. But like that's not like your perfect outcome at 11. And there's a world where like it hits, where he does shoot well, and because he shoots well, he's able to get past people, turn the corner, get his hips and shoulders past folks, create an advantage off the bounce. And if he can create an advantage and he can shoot a little bit, Then the passing comes into play, and I've said this a bunch with players like him. At 6'9", it's so much easier to fake it on defense, because like even if you're slow-footed, you're still gigantic. Like you're just still so big, and so you can like get away with it. And it would like allow the Blazers to play their dream of like just being huge across the board with him. With Demin, I feel like if it hits, wow, what a high level, interesting outcome that you end up with, right? It's like that's a really good player. If it doesn't hit, there are some challenging outcomes that are not ideal, but like that's what it's like picking at 11, right? You're not going to find perfect players in the draft, so there are some bets you have to make. And with Demin, you're making a bet that the sort of other skills allow the undeniable skills to come out, and that he can be a much more productive player in the pros. The last name is Noah Penda. He's playing professionally in France, 20 years old, measured over 6'7", barefoot. He's 245 pounds. Dude is huge. I will say I don't know much about him. Prior to pressing record on this particular show, I watched a YouTube video of some of his strengths and weaknesses. And I read Sam Vecini's scouting reports, and I read a little ESPN blurb about him. But like I can't sit here and tell you. I have learned a lot about Derik Queen and even seen him play, and learned a lot about Egor Demin during this pre-draft process. Penda is much more of someone that I personally do not know about, but he does seem kind of Blazersy, right? He's big, 6'7", maybe with shoes on, over 6'8", 245-pound wing who can maybe guard multiple positions, has some of that like connector, shoot, pass quickly, but not a lot of creator type of skills on the wing. Like he's not going to break you down off the dribble, it seems like, but he can like maybe shoot and make quick, smart decisions, keep the ball moving and pass. Like that seems like the type of sort of mold of high-level role player that you'd want, and he's just really stinking big, 6'8", 245. Like that, if you feel like he can guard guards at that size, then he can guard 4 positions pretty easily, and you could probably get away with switching him 1 through 5 if he's that big on a lot of centers. Like maybe Jokic would put him in a body bag, but like, I feel like he is very Blazersy in the way that it's like, this is a athlete with length who has some skills that clearly make you a useful NBA modern wing, and like a lot of other things that mean that you that you have to check a bunch of boxes to get there. Again, you're picking at 11. I don't know that I've read anywhere, I've seen anywhere sort of that projects that Penda could be like this breakout star, but I do think his path to being a useful, like one of those like plays on every team in the league type of wings is relatively clear just based on his size and defensive skill set. Whether he hits like the high end outcomes and becomes like an elite high end starter defender, 3-and-D guy, or he doesn't, I think is the, you're kind of banking on the jumper. He didn't shoot great. He doesn't have a big sample of shooting well, although he did shoot better his last season in France. He's intriguing. ESPN has him at 28. Sam Vecini has him all the way up at 15. Vecini loves Penda, and I guess Rafael Barlow doesn't like him. Ref didn't have him in his this is about a month old, but his top 70 that it came out in May, and didn't have him in his recent mock in the first round. So ESPN has him as like a borderline first at 28. Raf does not have him as a first round prospect, and Vecini has him all the way up at 15. So like some of this is maybe eyes of the beholder, right? Like some of this is like the fun part of the draft where a guy's range is anywhere from like as high as 11 with the Trailblazers to way deep. I don't read into any of this stuff as like the Blazers are trying to trade back. Don't make the simplest decisions here. Like this is Occam's razor. The reason that these gentlemen have been brought in is not because the Blazers are looking to trade back to 15 or 18 or whatever. It's because these are who they can get in the gym and they're interested in them. They want to see them up close. It doesn't mean they have to draft them, but they want to see them up close. I will say this. The Blazers, with their lottery picks, under Joe Cronin, they have brought players they draft into the gym. It happens. So when you get guys who are kind of in the range, and I'd say all these guys are kind of in the range, although Penda might be a little bit of a reach at 11. These are all players that put a star next to their name when you're thinking about who the Blazers might draft, because folks that have been in their building has been a strong indicator for folks, for the player that ends up on the team. I think all these are intriguing in their own way. Again, like with all these guys, some of his eyes of the beholder. Like, if you see Queen as a guy who can play power forward in the league, maybe you love him. If you see Demin as a guy who's going to figure out the shooting and like leverage that into being an awesome passer, maybe you love him at 11. If you think Penda has like all of the tools to be an elite 3-and-D wing, and there are skills to map onto the rest of that, yeah, maybe you love him at 11. I think that is the fun part about the draft is like you are looking at guys who need, it's like this, but if he does some other stuff, this is what he brings. But if he does some other stuff, and if you can talk yourself into, or you can see a clear path for the other stuff, it's pretty easy to get excited about a whole range of folks. That is going to do it for today's show. Come back for more the rest of the week. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.